The sun scorches the rolling plains of Montana. The wind whispers across the tall grass, carrying with it an echo of war drums and the distant cries of warriors. This is June 25th, 1876, a day that would carve itself into the heart of American history as both glory and tragedy. The Battle of the Little Bighorn, a clash of cultures, an explosion of destiny, and the final defiant cry of a people who refuse to bow to the relentless march of expansion. At the center of this cataclysm stands one man, George Armstrong Custer, a name that would forever symbolize both reckless heroism and fatal arrogance. Today we revisit that moment, not through the lens of myth, but through the blood and dust where legends were born and dreams were shattered. Stay with us, because this is more than just a battle. It's the story of pride, freedom, and the high price of manifest destiny. George Armstrong Custer was no ordinary soldier. Born in 1839, he entered West Point near the bottom of his class, 34th out of 34. But what he lacked in academic brilliance, he made up for in sheer audacity. By the time the Civil War erupted, Custer's flair for drama and fearlessness catapulted him into the spotlight. He was the kind of man, wrote historian Stephen Ambrose in Crazy Horse and Custer, who lived for the trumpet call. Glory was his oxygen, and battle was his stage. Custer rose to the rank of brevet major general before the age of 25. To many Americans, he embodied the dashing cavalryman, golden-haired, bold, and seemingly invincible. But behind the legend was a man consumed by ambition, desperate to preserve his place in a world that was moving past him. The Civil War had ended. The great clash of blue and gray was over, and America turned its eyes westward. The frontier became the new theater of national destiny, a vast land rich with promise, but already claimed by nations older than the Republic itself. The Lakota Sioux, Cheyenne, and Arapaho had roamed these plains for centuries. To them, the land was not a prize, but a sacred trust, a gift from the Great Spirit. But the discovery of gold in the Black Hills in 1874 changed everything. When the white man finds gold, Chief Sitting Bull would later say, he becomes like a hungry wolf. The Treaty of 1868, which had guaranteed the Black Hills to the Lakota, became a scrap of paper. Miners poured in, followed by soldiers to protect them. The spark was lit, and the Great Sioux War had begun. Custer, ever hungry for glory, seized his chance. The 7th Cavalry, his old command, would march against the hostile tribes gathering under Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. The campaign was supposed to be swift and decisive, a show of force that would scatter the native bands and remind them of America's unstoppable might. But in the valleys of the Little Bighorn, fate was waiting with a different script. Custer believed he faced a few hundred warriors at most. In reality, the village sprawled for miles, sheltering perhaps 8,000 people with 1,500 to 2,000 seasoned fighters ready for war. It was the largest native encampment the plains had ever seen. On that fateful morning, Custer made a decision that has been debated for nearly 150 years. Splitting his regiment into 3 battalions, he hoped to encircle the village, strike hard, and seize victory before reinforcements could arrive. In war, wrote Evan S. Connell in Son of the Morning Star, Custer was a gambler. He had always rolled the dice, and until this day they had always come up in his favor. But this time, the dice were loaded. As Custer's column rode north along the bluffs, dust rose like a curtain behind them. Warriors, alerted by Reno's initial attack, surged out of the village in a storm of painted horses and flashing rifles. The Lakota and Cheyenne did not fight as scattered bands. They moved like a single living force, a tide of vengeance sweeping across the hills. Picture the scene. Custer and his men cresting a ridge, the valley spread before them like an ocean of teepees. Then, from the sage and grass, riders erupt, wild, fearless, and relentless. The earth was alive with Indians, one survivor of Reno's command would later recall. Warriors fired Henry and Winchester repeaters, their deadly rhythm cutting through the thunder of hooves. Arrows darkened the sky. The 7th Cavalry fought desperately, but they were outnumbered 5-1. Custer A.S. battalion of 210 men dismounted and formed skirmish lines on the bluffs of what we now call Last Stand Hill. Smoke curled in the hot wind. Carbines cracked. Horses screamed. Men prayed. And through it all, Custer stood, saber abandoned, pistols in hand, defiant to the end. The attack was fierce, the resistance desperate, wrote historian Nathaniel Philbrick. But on those bare slopes, valor had no allies. Midway through this story, I want to invite you to subscribe to our channel if you love uncovering the real stories behind the legends. Many tales you've heard are myths. Here we tell the truth, raw and unfiltered. So hit that subscribe button, join our community, and never miss a journey into the past. The final moments at Little Bighorn are shrouded in mystery. No white soldier lived to tell the tale, but the earth keeps secrets, and the Lakota and Cheyenne warriors who were there remembered. They spoke of Custer rallying his men, of bullets tearing through the dust, of blood soaking the grass. Some say he died with a smile, others that his face was calm, almost serene, as if he had finally met the destiny he had been chasing all his life. There are no survivors, reported the New York Herald, to tell the story of Custer's last fight, but the world will never forget it. When the smoke cleared, the hill was silent. 210 men lay dead, Custer among them, pierced by bullets but strangely untouched by mutilation, as if even his enemies recognized the gravity of his fall. The village rejoiced, but it was a fleeting triumph. The fury of the United States would soon sweep across the plains in a tide of iron and fire. Within a year, the Sioux and Cheyenne were broken, their freedom extinguished. Sitting Bull would flee to Canada. Crazy Horse would die in custody, and the Black Hills, the heart of the Lakota world, would be lost forever. Yet the Battle of the Little Bighorn remains etched in the American soul. To some, it was a heroic last stand, a modern Thermopylae where Custer and his men fought against impossible odds. To others, it was a bitter reckoning, the inevitable price of hubris and broken promises. History, wrote Ambrose, is not kind to men who mistake ambition for destiny. And yet, as we look back across that windswept ridge, we cannot escape the haunting power of the story, the clash of two worlds, the courage on both sides, and the unyielding march of fate. Today, Last Stand Hill is quiet. The white markers gleam against the green, each one a ghost whispering from the past. The American flag ripples in the breeze, and the voices of the dead seem to ride with the wind. Men who dreamed of glory, men who fought for their land, all swept away in the tide of history. This was not just a battle. It was the twilight of a way of life, the moment when the old America yielded to the new. And in that moment, on that lonely hill, George Armstrong Custer achieved the immortality he had always sought, not in victory, but in the echo of his fall. If you believe history matters, if you believe that the stories of courage, tragedy, and destiny deserve to be remembered, share this video, leave your thoughts in the comments, and keep the flame of the past alive. Because history is not dead. It rides with us still, on the wind of the plains, under the shadow of the Little Bighorn.